Good morning to you, Evelyn. Nvidia, this is one that has certainly been a strong performer. Is it as popular on social media as it is in terms of a stock investment?
Hey, Alex. Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Nvidia is very popular on social media, especially this morning when I was looking through ahead of their earnings after market today. And it definitely was helped out by that positive price target raise from BMO Capital that we saw that boosted Nvidia's new price target to $565, up from $425. And that is a new street high there for Nvidia. But people are talking about it, and Nvidia does have a lot of different eggs and a lot of different. As a chip maker, they have their hands in artificial intelligence and self-driving cars, as well as gaming. And I think there is where we saw a lot of that stay-at-home trade work for, stay work from home trade work for Nvidia, because a lot more people are software. But I want to go ahead and start out with this first tweet that I found today. And this is from a Twitter user who said that everybody is busy talking about the TikTok and Apple battle, while nobody is talking about the GeForce Cloud gaming launch of Nvidia. And while I wouldn't go so far as to say that nobody's talking about this, Nvidia is doing a lot in the gaming sphere right now. And in addition to the cloud gaming launch, they are also on the verge of releasing their flagship Ampere graphics card, which would be the most expensive consumer graphics card on the market whenever that comes out. And that is right now known to be named the GeForce RTX 3090, but we'll definitely keep our eyes on that. But moving on, I also saw a pretty in-depth thread on Twitter today by Twitter user ZT Investing, who listed 10 bullish reasons for his case on Nvidia. And don't worry, guys, I'm not going to read out all 10 reasons, but I do want to read out his first tweet in this thread. And the Twitter user ZT Investing here said that Nvidia is a pioneer in the AI hardware market, providing GPUs to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, among others. In their most recent quarter, revenue from these chips increased 80% to $1.1 billion. The market for these chips alone is expected to be $80.2 billion by 2027. So guys, I know that there's a lot of information here that people can cover with Nvidia, but I just wanted to bring forth like a scope of their strengths and what people are talking about, what people are excited about. But Kevin, I want to ask you this question next. And based on all of these positive notes surrounding Nvidia ahead of their earnings, do you think that there could be that expectations could be too high for the stock going into earnings this afternoon?
Good morning, Evelyn. And isn't this just the question that we've been asking ourselves many times during this earnings season? We know this company's good, right? I believe that is fact. That this company with everything going on in the world is into everything, right? They're into AI, data centers, machine learning, self-driving cars, cloud, gaming, data center cloud. There's nothing in terms of this new digital world that they don't do. Now, here's the good news. Microsoft, Sony coming out with new console launches at the end of the year. That's going to help Nvidia. The stay-at-home trade, data center and cloud, that's going to help Nvidia. That said, the stock is up over 100% this year. Not in the last, blah, blah, blah. This year, it's up over 100%. Now, the question is, can they say something or do something in their earnings release to give enough inertia to this stock to take it higher? That is the big question, Evelyn. Do I know? No, I don't. We've seen some history during this earnings season that good companies doing really good things come out with huge numbers, and it doesn't matter to the stock price, guys.
Well, if that last tweet's in any way an indication of how people feel about this company, the bar is certainly set high. Looking for a factor of growth of 80 over the next 7 years would be absolutely incredible, but we'll see how it plays out. Evelyn Baker, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Of course, Evelyn, a contributor across the TD Ameritrade Network. As we say goodbye to Evelyn, we want to welcome in Landon Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, to the program. Good morning to you, Landon. This is an interesting one because it seems like this has to be one of the main players in this space in terms of these different graphics cards and chips and things to do with tech. But is it as popular amongst consumer purchase intent mentions to keep up with how incredibly popular this stock has become?
Short answer is yes. Now let me give you the long answer. GeForce is I think it is the graphics card, and it's got a lot of uses as Kevin just talked about. It's gaming, obviously, and I think that's where it started. And it's interesting because, I'm a bit of a former gamer, and so I always used to look at the specs of a computer, and you wanted a good processor, a lot of RAM, this is 10 or 15 years ago, but over the last 10, maybe 5 years, it's more and more about the graphics card. And that is where Nvidia comes in. And that is a huge driver into your ability to play the high end games. And so they're dominating this market and they're getting a lot of people buying their products, partly because of that fact that they're the best, but then also because that market is growing tremendously. There's a lot more people playing games than they used to be. Here's a chart of how many people are talking about playing games on a PC, and it was in a nice little uptrend until you forced people to stay at home, and then it rocketed, and now that uptrend is continuing. And so we've got a much broader market, a much larger and growing market of people that want those high-end graphics cards, and GeForce is the top of the line. We've got PC gaming at about a 110% growth year over year, which is a huge portion of NVIDIA's market. Of course, as Evelyn talked about, there's also the data center that's really important. It's actually projected for the first time to outpace the gaming sector as far as revenue for Nvidia, which is huge. So they've got their main one, gaming, which is now being surpassed by another huge growth in the data center. We do have some data on that. Obviously, LikeFolio focuses on consumer mentions, but we do have some insight into the B2B world as well. And you can see here, even though it is a much lower sample size, there is a huge spike in people talking about getting on board with NVIDIA's data center. So both segments are growing very well for this company, just off all-time highs. I think they hit those on Monday, couldn't quite break through 500, but right there. And so just sitting about 2% under that. Extremely happy customer base. Every metric that we have across the board for NVIDIA is very, very positive. But Kevin, as you know, it all comes down to what expectations are versus reality. And so they may come out with gangbuster numbers, and if that's expected, they may sell off. So it's really tough to know how Wall Street's going to react. But I think it's pretty obvious, at least from LikeFolio's data, that they're going to report some really big numbers.
Yeah, you're right, Landon. Nvidia is a great company. That's the easy part, right? But how do you trade it going into earnings? That's where it gets a little tricky. So you have to be able to take all this news that you're about to consume and digest and decide, what does that do to the stock tomorrow, right? How does it trade when this news comes out? And we've seen, some stocks go higher, some stocks that put up gaudy, absurd numbers like Walmart and Home Depot still soften as those numbers come out. So I agree that this company is as good of a company as there is out there that seems to be into everything. But the words too far, too fast pop into my head. And, I'd much rather be a buyer of a dip than a buyer or a long delta trader up here, guys.
Landon, question for you, kind of, outside this box a little bit, because you talked about the gaming side of things, clearly trends going in the right direction for a company like Nvidia. A lot of these other use cases, as you pointed out, particularly from work at home, driving this stock higher as well. But a couple of years ago, I remember a huge catalyst for the upside on this particular name was its exposure to crypto and these cards being used for that as well. Have you seen any resurgence in that space? I saw Bitcoin was like 12,000 again. Has that brought back any activity into that space, and is that potentially a catalyst to the upside for this stock?
No, that's a great point. And there could be an entire company based on just selling graphics cards for cryptocurrency mining. And I think they do very well. And it's funny that we didn't even talk about that because that is a big portion of their sales. A lot of the graphics card sales percentage goes to people who are looking to mine cryptocurrency. I believe Bitcoin's got its own type of miner that doesn't use a graphics card like GeForce, but most of the other cryptocurrencies do use that. And as that market goes up, you talked about Bitcoin hitting around 12,000 again. As all those rise, mining is going to become more popular again. And so that's just more sales for this company. So it's interesting that that's a footnote, but it's still a very large number as far as dollars in revenue. And here you can see the purchase intent for Nvidia for the entire company on a quarterly basis. The quarter that's about to be reported is that second to last, the fully colored bar, that 2020 Q2, down a little bit from last quarter, but that was a monster and still up year over year, very strong. And what's interesting is the current pace of the current quarter is on pace to be even larger, plus 65% year over year. So we're showing some really strong numbers coming out of NVIDIA. If you look at their specific segments, GeForce plus 40% year over year, data center 200% year over year, and then that PC gaming, which we talked about, is a basically double year over year. So that compiled with the fact that their customer base is extremely happy. They've got a 77% consumer happiness rating. I think the lowest we've seen in the 8 years that we've been tracking this company is 70, which is really high. I know it doesn't sound high, but compared to other companies, it's off the charts. So they've got a very happy and loyal fan base, and they're hitting on all cylinders. So really, it just comes down to a question of valuation. I agree, Kevin. It's tough to be long at these all-time highs when you look at this stock chart that's just rocketed over the last year or so. Maybe selling puts if you like this company long term. LikeFolio has been, issuing bullish statements on Nvidia for a couple of years now, so our clients are extremely happy. But here's getting a little tough at 500. It's getting a little tough to be bullish. So we'll see what they report tomorrow. But we love the numbers.